All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Racing with Riku stream. I hope you can hear me. I'm not really sure. Let me see if I can hear myself. I hope I can. Anyways, we will see as time goes on how it works. I'm hoping it's okay. Yes, so thank you. This is the first stream I'm doing. I'm a little bit nervous as I've never done this before, but we'll go with the flow and hopefully it will be okay. Now, as you know, this is a new channel I created just this year. And the thing that is new about this, or the thing that I haven't talked about before, oh, look, okay, I see myself now. We're all good. So, this is a channel that I created to be able to just share my thoughts essentially and my passion for Formula One. I have no set schedule, but I am hoping to do these live streams more often because that way I'll be able to hopefully interact with all of you guys, as there may not be lots of you now, but hopefully in the future will be a much larger community. And through live streams, I just think it's much easier to do maybe post race reactions or post race discussions because we can all engage together and you can give me your thoughts as well. So, for those of you watching, thank you. For those of you that aren't watching, that may be watching in the future, thank you as well. And welcome to the channel. Now, of course, the first thing I want to say is that I am very excited for this upcoming season, as I'm sure most of you are as well. I do hope we don't get such a dominant performance from Red Bull as we did last season, because that was truly something that at some point for me personally, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. You would lose some of the connection and the joy of watching an F1 season by seeing the same team dominate over and over. They won all of the races except for the one in Singapore, where arguably they probably would have won if they had a proper setup. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy that Ferrari ended up winning, a Ferrari fan myself. It's just that it doesn't feel like there was truly any competition throughout the season. Not only does it not feel like that, there really wasn't any competition. So that's something I truly hope doesn't repeat. And as much as I do think Max Verstappen is extremely talented, which you can clearly see by the difference between him and Checo Perez, uh, yeah, it's just something I'm not looking forward to. I don't like seeing it. But again, it's not up to Red Bull to be worse. It's up to the other teams to be better. Sorry. It's up to other teams to be better. Now, you cannot blame a team for doing their job properly. I mean, they all have the same amount of money allocated, they all have the same resources. It's up to them how they decide to use them. Just because Red Bull did something incredibly well doesn't mean they're to blame. Nobody was complaining when Mercedes had that incredible run, but now it seems to be a huge problem. So I take nothing away from Red Bull. I respect all of their hard work and think they deserve it. But at the same time, I want to see those other teams step up. And just recently, I was reading something on Twitter that said Fred Vasseur has made it clear that he thinks Ferrari has to be taking risks in 2024 to have a chance at competing. And I think that's the right approach. If you know you're behind from a car standpoint, you need to be taking some risks to try to do something, because if you aren't, then there's no way you're going to catch them on pure pace if we see a repeat of last season. And after watching the testing, you can clearly see that I personally don't believe Red Bull had their settings on maximum. I do think they have much more to extract from that car. I think Verstappen was just trying to go for basically the same time over and over every lap. Although I do believe other teams might have been sandbagging, as we like to call it as well. I don't think any of them are sandbagging to the extreme that they may be able to overtake Red Bull, at least not at the beginning. But this remains to be seen. Now, another thing I'm very excited about this season is that I'll be going to my first ever F1 race at Monza. Yes, I know, Ferrari fan Monza, typical dream, anything you want to call it, but I am truly excited for that, and I cannot wait. That's at the end of August into September, and I do hope to make some content from you guys there. Maybe we'll even be live streaming from the race, which would be pretty incredible if we get to do that. But that's still a couple months away, and we have a lot of races to go until then. So hopefully there'll be a chance for Ferrari to win, and if Ferrari could get a 1-2 at Monza, I think that would be the top that the sport has to offer, really. Now, as for my predictions for this season go, this is pretty hard to say because it'd be absurd not to put Verstappen in first place. Although there's a difference between what I would like to happen and what I do believe will happen. And unfortunately for us, fortunately for him, I don't see anybody competing with him because he is just so talented and so quick in that car. And after testing, he seemed to be even happier this year and said the car responded much better than it had last year. So what more do we want to hear? I mean, it's clear that he's confident. He loves the feeling in the car, and I think it's a no-brainer. If things go their way, Red Bull have this season in the bag again, with Max Verstappen winning it because I don't really see Sergio Perez giving him much headache. And at the same time, I think Helmut Marko also doesn't think that it's going that direction either because he's already talking about looking at Yuki or Daniel Ricciardo for a potential promotion to that main Red Bull team. This seems like an odd thing to be talking about before the season starts when you have your second lead driver for Red Bull, Sergio Perez, who clearly didn't have the greatest of seasons last year, and his confidence can't be at an all time high. I'm sure this isn't helping him with his confidence either. I know Max is enjoying destroying him for sure, but again, between those two teams, so if we know for sure or we think that Red Bull's going to win, out of those two drivers, I don't see Sergio Perez competing, although he says he would like to and he'd like to make him competitive. I say 5, 6 races tops, and Max Verstappen will be running away with it if what we think is going to happen is going to happen. To make things even better, I don't even think Perez is going to get second this year. I think that honor is going to go to Charles Leclerc. Now, whenever I talk about Leclerc, you may say that I'm biased because I am a heavy Charles Leclerc fan. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, I don't mind any of them, but personally, I am a Charles Leclerc fan. And I do think he will be doing more than he did last year because I think he's had a very bad run of luck with Ferrari in general. And I actually have a video topic coming up over the next couple of weeks about the curse that he has with Ferrari. There's nobody that bleeds Ferrari as much as Charles Leclerc, and they just keep giving him an underperforming cars with so many DNFs, so many bad starts. For example, last year in Brazil, when he couldn't even get to the line, you could feel the heartbreak in his voice. So if Ferrari, and they do seem to be on the right step, manage to clean all of that up and get their strategies together and not have Carlos Sainz be their top strategist in the team while he's racing, I think there's a chance that Leclerc will finish ahead of Perez. Now, I'm not sure if they'll be competing for race wins, although I hope they will be competing for race wins. Time will only tell, and we'll know much more after the first Grand Prix in Bahrain. But as of now, as a prediction, which basically is something you do not know, just looking at data that we have, I think Charles Leclerc can challenge for that second spot, and I would personally love to see him get it as well. In third place, I have Perez, because as much as I don't think he's on the level of Max Verstappen, that car is just so quick and so good that there's no reason he shouldn't be getting third position. Basically, he should be getting second. I'm just hoping he's not getting second. But third position, I think, is a lock for Sergio Perez. There's not much more I can say to that. I think if he isn't or if he isn't performing up to standards by half of the season, I wouldn't be shocked if we do see a switch between some of the Red Bull drivers. Liam Lawson performed incredibly well last season for the 4 races I think he had. And that put a large problem for Red Bull because now they have 3 drivers that are fighting for those 2 AlphaTauri spots and basically 4 drivers that all want that main Red Bull seat beside Max Verstappen. We know that Christian Horner is a huge Daniel Ricciardo fan and he would be looking to have him in that Red Bull seat because Daniel Ricciardo is just a marketing genius. Nobody does it better than him. And I mean, how can you not love that smile? But this for Sergio Perez can only be giving him more headaches because he doesn't have the freedom to know he can make mistakes. And although he is making mistakes, he's in his head too much. So I do think he has to be performing well and has to finish at least third and frankly, probably at least second to even be considered for a drive in the 2025 season. In fourth place, I have the second Ferrari driver, Carlos Sainz, who's alongside Leclerc, because I do think Ferrari will have a competitive car this year. And due to the fact that they do have a competitive car, there's no reason why Carlos Sainz shouldn't also be competing for wins, not just Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz has proved that he's a phenomenal driver and a phenomenal Ferrari driver as well. And now that he's been told that he'll be out of that seat come 2025, I'm sure he has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, how could you not? You're driving for a Ferrari, one of, like Hamilton said, a childhood dream, everybody's childhood dream. And to be announced that you won't be driving the following season before this season even starts, it has to sting, especially knowing you got the only victory for the team last year. This isn't what he wanted for sure, and he wants to show that they made the wrong decision. And not only that, he wants to up his stock for next season as well because he's without a drive at the moment. I mean, I'm sure he has many suitors, and he'll definitely find one. But as of now, he doesn't have a drive yet. So the higher up he finishes in the driver standings, the more of a case he has essentially for himself come 2025, and he definitely wants a competitive seat. Now, in in fifth place, I have Lando Norris. McLaren really turned it around last season. I mean, they didn't have a great start at all. And not only did they not have a great start, they had a tremendous, like horribly, horribly, horribly tremendous or bad start, essentially. It was a terrible start. Not a tremendous start. They had a tremendous finish, sorry. They had a horrible start, which turned out to be a tremendous second half of the season. And due to the fact that we only got to see their performance, I think the upgrade started and he was competitive come Austria, right before Silverstone. Since then, they have been the team that sent it to Red Bull the most. There was no team that was as competitive, although you would argue that yes, Ferrari won. Ferrari was good towards the end of the season. McLaren was on top of it. I mean, Lando Norris is so close to getting that first win. And not only that, Oscar Piastri, a rookie, who saw that coming? And this is the best rookie season anyone has had since probably Lewis Hamilton. But this is what they needed. I mean, now their confidence is back in the drivers, because if they would have had another season where they didn't perform at all, this would have been pretty bad. And I truly don't think Lando Norris would have even re-signed. But they have both of these drivers on lock. Lando Norris, I do think, is still the leader within that team. I would be shocked if somehow Oscar Piastri does beat him. I do think in the future, Oscar Piastri could give Lando Norris a run for his money. And I know this isn't a popular opinion, but personally, I would like to see it as well. Overall, I do think Lando Norris will finish ahead of Oscar Piastri, and I have him finishing third. I have him finishing fifth, not third. Lando Norris finishing fifth. In sixth position, I have Lewis Hamilton. Now, for Lewis Hamilton, I don't know if a victory tour or if he's actually serious about racing for Mercedes this year, because I think there's some pretty bad blood between him and Toto Wolff and that whole Mercedes team at the moment. And the same things as it is with Sainz. I mean, if you know you're leaving the team before the end of the year, there is no reason for that team to share any of their secrets or development with you, because essentially you'll be taking all that information and bringing it to their main or one of their main competitors the following season. Lewis Hamilton has proven that he's worthy. Okay, he's a great driver, maybe arguably the greatest of all time. We can argue that another time. But this past couple seasons, he hasn't been that great. I mean, he was beaten by George Russell in 2022. Last year, sure, he had a lot of podiums. He performed well, but he spends more time complaining than he does actually driving the car. And I'm really curious to see how he does perform at Ferrari. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. But I think Leclerc is going to beat him. And I would love to see it, because I would like to see the response that he has. And I truly don't hope that he comes to Ferrari and starts bragging that he's the 7-time world champion and that he deserves the rightfully top spot in that team, which I don't think he will get. But again, time will tell. I do think he's still a great driver. He is consistent. Mercedes is good at consistency. Like I said in my previous video, they have a chance to be fighting maybe. I'm scared to say anybody has a chance to be fighting for wins anymore, because Red Bull is just that dominant. But they have a chance to be fighting for high points. Let's just leave it at that. I have them finishing fourth over on the constructors, and I have Hamilton finishing ahead of Russell in sixth. But for him, I think this is going to be more of a victory lap, saying bye to everybody his last season as a Mercedes driver, because I don't think he'll be coming back. I think he's not too keen on helping that team be great anymore, because they didn't listen to him. And I think he took that personally, like that Michael Jordan meme where he says he took that personally. I think Lewis Hamilton took it personally, that Mercedes didn't take his input and listen to him. He's a great driver. He'll get those points if he has the car, but I don't think his motivation is at an all-time high, because he doesn't have anything to prove. And if he doesn't do well, he can always blame it on the car anyway. So it doesn't really matter this year. He is safe. He's going to Ferrari next season. Let me know what you think about this, but those are my personal opinions. Next up, in 7th position, I have Alonso. Now, this is a hit or miss depending on how Aston Martin does with their car. Their car could either be incredibly fast like it was last year, or not. There's no in between. I mean, we saw them come out of the gates running, but towards half of the season, they weren't doing much anymore. They stopped getting on podiums. There wasn't much development in the car. as a team, it's hard for them to consistently be right at the top because Alonso is a phenomenal driver. Lance Stroll isn't the greatest. I mean, he can get points every so often, but you could see the discrepancy between between Lance Stroll and Alonso. Alonso being on the podium multiple times, whereas Lance Stroll was struggling to get within the points. I know he had his hand injury. I do hope everything is okay. I do hope he performs. I mean, he's a fellow Canadian. I would only like to see him do well, but I just don't think that lineup is the one that's going to bring Aston Martin to the promised land. However, I do think Alonso, if he has a decent car, he doesn't even have to have as good a car as he did last year. He just has to have a decent car that can fight for points. He will fight and he will squeeze every ounce out of that car that he can. And I do think he will finish seventh ahead of some other great drivers. In eighth position, I have George Russell, Lewis Hamilton's teammate. Now, if there's one thing that I do think Lewis Hamilton wants to prove is that he's still quicker than his teammate George Russell. So that might be the only motivation he has this year for being extremely competitive. George Russell, on the other hand, he's a top dog now at Mercedes. I mean, until they have an official replacement that you can say is clearly better than he is, or more senior or more seasoned or whatever, he's going to lead that team as of now. So he definitely feels that he has some rights within that team and that he should be favored because, again, the team is betting on you and you're betting on that team long term, not just for this year. I think this is also another reason why there could be some serious drama within the team. I don't want to repeat of Qatar last year when they hit each other, although that was pretty entertaining. I don't know how competitive they will be. Again, if the car is competitive, Russell can be a great driver. He lost a lot of credibility points in Singapore last year when he hit the wall on the final lap. That's tough. That's tough to do at the F1 level. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, you can't do that. And then that started the whole discussion with the team not going to Lewis's podium and a lot of different things, but you cannot be making those mistakes. Those are serious points for the team and for yourself. And yeah, I lost a lot of faith in him after that one mistake. But he's still a great driver. He's still young. He has a lot of time left. He is, in my opinion, going to finish in the top 10 clearly. Eighth, maybe higher. I don't know. Again, it depends on a lot of factors. Maybe Aston Martin won't be competitive. He may be better than Alonso if his car is much better. Maybe he'll fight Lewis. I would like to see competition be brought to Lewis. And no, I'm not a Lewis hater. I like to see the Lewis Hamilton cult agitated. Let's put it nicely like that. I like to see how they react. I like to see how he reacts because if you are a great driver and arguably the greatest of all time, you need to react and perform. In ninth position, I have Oscar Piastri. And this is one I really didn't know where to classify because for me, Oscar Piastri is amazing. I mean, he's calm, he's collected. I would never bet that he's a rookie if I saw him drive and the way he handles himself pre-race, post-race, in any of the situations. He's just pretty great. To think that he already has a sprint race win against Max Verstappen in that car, in that occasion where Max Verstappen ended up becoming the world champion. I, I, I don't know. That's insane to have that level of collectedness and to be able to do that. Although, if he does start performing well, again, drama within the team. Lando Norris, he's the top dog in that team. He will not like it if Oscar Piastri is consistently beating him. And one of Oscar Piastri's main problems last year was the lack of race pace that he had or the tire degradation, but that's where we could clearly see the difference between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Lando was much quicker in those races. If he manages to fix some of these issues and just get better essentially at the race pace itself, he'll be giving Lando Norris a lot of trouble. And if McLaren starts the season how they started basically at half point last year, then Oscar Piastri could be way higher on this list. It's only time will tell, and it depends how these cars react. And right now in testing, they're looking much, much better than they were in testing last year. So I do hope Oscar goes up higher than 9, but 9 is my favorite number. So if that's an omen, so be it. Now, on the final place on this list, I only listed my top 10. I have one of the Alpine drivers. It's kind of hit or miss between the two. I personally prefer Gasly, and I think he's a better driver. I think he's a better teammate. I hope they cleaned up some of their issues because I was one of the ones that thought there's no way that team pairing will ever work. But apparently, maybe it somehow did. I don't know. I thought that first season was kind of weak. They've already started this season by saying that their car is way behind where they would like it to be, which isn't a great thing to hear before the season starts. I mean, you don't get your team motivated, you don't get your drivers motivated. I just wouldn't go that route. I don't think they're sandbagging. I think they genuinely don't have a quick car. And that's something they'll definitely want to fix, because if you don't have a quick car, you have nothing in Formula One. And you're paying these drivers heavy bucks. They already have issues with their team management. As we know, they keep switching. Yeah, I have Gasly in 10th, but again, if Aston Martin has a quick car, it could be Lance Stroll. 10th at this point, it's just a prediction. It's hard to say who it could be. There's a lot of different drivers on my mind. I would love to see Daniel Ricciardo get it. I mean, I would like him to be Yuki. I would like him to be, as Christian Horner said, setting times close to Max, so that we see him in that main Red Bull, and maybe he'll beat Max. Maybe there'll be drama there. It's hard to say that, or it's strange to say that we love the drama, but I genuinely love the drama that comes with Formula One. So seeing Max Verstappen lap Perez, it's not cutting it. Not at this point. I don't know. As for the team rankings, I think I've made that pretty clear, especially in my last video. If you haven't seen that, you can go check that one out. It's on my channel. I have Red Bull clearly dominating, clearly finishing in first. I don't know if it'll be quite as dominant a season as it was last year, but I don't think it'll be close at all, unfortunately. I think it'll be genuinely Red Bull, clear-cut favorites, Max Verstappen, clear winner, on to 2025. But come second place, this is where things start to get a bit interesting. Now, I have Ferrari finishing second because I do believe they have the strongest team lineup. And when I say strongest, I mean strongest. I mean better than Red Bull lineup, better than Mercedes' lineup, better than McLaren's lineup. And it's strange to think that one of their drivers is leaving the next year because Ferrari decided to make that decision. But as of now, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, top driver lineup. So if they have a car that is not even quick, because they're always quick, if they have a car that's reliable and their strategists do their job properly, they have the best chance at being in second position. And I think they should have got in second position last year as well. I don't know exactly what happened on that last race, because if they truly wanted to, he could have made it so that Charles Leclerc and his engineer could have made it so that Ferrari finishes ahead of Mercedes. Now, I have all the conspiracy theories that maybe they wanted more wind tunnel time. I don't know. I don't see how that's possible when you're at that elite of a level to be making those mistakes. So I like to think that it was on purpose for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. Mercedes were more consistent throughout the season. It's fine. But this year, if Ferrari starts off where they left off, they will most likely be finishing in second position. This is the third place is where I have a bit of an issue, because it's hard to decide between having McLaren or Mercedes, but I think it's going to be McLaren. I mean, seeing that McLaren basically rocket ship for the second half of the season gave me hope that if they have a whole season to showcase that type of pace, they're going to be tough to beat. Tough to beat. Definitely tough to beat. Mercedes, they have a new concept to the car. It can be hit or miss. We don't know. But McLaren, if they keep it up, they'll be third, maybe fighting for second. I hope not, but maybe. And I would like to see it again. Although I'm a Ferrari fan, I do not by any means, or I am not opposed to any team fighting Ferrari. I would like to see it happen, although I would like to see Ferrari win. Yeah, it is what it is. Fourth position, Mercedes, of course, the top four in my mind. Aston Martin's making it difficult with their ideas of being quick and their surprises that they throw at us when they actually are quick. That cooled off towards the end of the season, but like I said, we don't know where they will be this year. I mean, if you listen to Papa Stroll, he's always talking about how this year is their year, how they've made big improvements all the time. So maybe it's true. Maybe they genuinely are quick and they genuinely will be flying and competing for wins, which would be a huge leap over, I don't know what it was, 3 years. Think of where they were 2 years ago to last year, to if they do make that leap this year. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But as we know, the first race that is coming up is the Bahrain Grand Prix. And the schedule for the Bahrain Grand Prix is a bit different this year. We're starting the practices on Thursday, with the qualifying on Friday, and the race day itself on Saturday. Now, we'll be much more positioned, or much better positioned, to actually be making predictions about the season after this first race, or even after the qualifying session. But what I'm really looking forward to seeing is how Red Bull performs in those race situations. Because, like I said, on the testing days, Max Verstappen was setting lap times that were identical to each other, one after the other, after the other, after the other. He was just setting stellar times consistently. That's not a good sign. I mean, the other teams were all going for pace. I think Red Bull wasn't going for the quickest lap because they would have gotten it if they were. But nevertheless, Bahrain will be a benchmark to start the season, and I can't be wishing. I'm not wishing for a miracle, so to say other teams are ahead of Red Bull. I just want it to be close so that they can hopefully catch up. And there's not much more to say to this. I do hope so. As for me, from a channel standpoint, I do want to be doing, like I said, the race discussions after every race. So I will be starting that Saturday. It will be Saturday night, most likely an hour or two after the race to give you some time maybe to watch some of the post-race analytics or analysis from F1 TV or wherever you enjoy watching it. And then I'll hop on here and we can just discuss about the race. You guys can give me your input as well, and we can see how that plays out. I'm still thinking if I will be doing some previews towards the races, but I think for the first couple of races, I'll just be doing post-race discussions so that we know in which direction the season is going. Thank you guys for watching the first ever live stream of Racing with Riku. I hope it'll be the first of many, and I hope to get to know as many of you guys as I can in the future. And to leave it off, make sure you answer the poll in the comment section of whether you think any team can challenge Victor. I don't know. We'll see. I know you're rooting for Hamilton. For you, I hope it happens. If not this year, then maybe we'll be more on the same page next year when he's at Ferrari. We can agree to disagree until then. Let me know what your thoughts on this season will be if Red Bull can be challenged by anybody. And more to that, have you seen Drive to Survive? If so, did you enjoy it? And what was your favorite episode? Thank you guys, and see you Sunday. Bye.